Hello, welcome here. So, if you're new to my community, welcome. My name is Chané. I'm a health and wellness mentor, empowering women to live their best life. We do that by establishing healthy habits, working on our mindset, and putting ourselves first. So, I want to welcome you to my community. Make sure that you subscribe and follow along. And I'm excited to dive into this next episode with you. So, today's episode, I'm talking about what is your inner critic? How do you kind of become aware of it, and what do you do once you find out about it? So, the inner critic is defined as a concept used in popular psychology and psychotherapy to refer to a sub-personality that judges and demeans a person. So, let's just talk about that for a second. When you're oftentimes your inner critic, a lot of people will think of their inner critic as their sort of guide, essentially, which is not true. So your inner critic is this negative voice in your head, this persona essentially of doubt that comes in. And so it usually shows up when you are doing something new for the first time. It's kind of like a little warning sign to you, basically saying hey, we're trying something new, I don't like it, we're not going to be good at it, so don't worry about it. It's going to tell you all the negative things about yourself and kind of talk you out of doing the situation. So the thing is, if some people will confuse the inner critic with your inner conscious. So your inner conscience is your basically your guide. That's your inner knowing that something is off or something is wrong. Some people refer to it as their gut, their gut intuition. It's essentially just your little the devil and the angel on your shoulders. So the good conscious and the bad conscious is just the good morals essentially that you have that are programmed inside of you. That is not what the inner critic is. The inner critic is basically the negative thoughts that arise typically when you're doing something new or just, in a day-to-day life. But most of the time they arise when something new is going on or when there's a new situation that you haven't handled before. So some examples of inner critic is I'm so ugly, I'm so stupid, I'm fat, I'll never succeed, I'm not smart enough to do this. So you can kind of see how demeaning that is, and the things that we say to ourselves on a daily basis matters, because if you're going to say this stuff to yourself, it's ultimately going to stop you, especially if you take action on it. You're going to end up attaching some sort of emotion to it because you're going to be yeah, that is true, I am fat. Yeah, I'll never succeed. Yeah, there are people smarter than me. And by having that sort of emotion attached to it, it's ultimately going to stop you from actually moving forward and pursuing the thing that you're going for. So that inner critic is not something that you want to listen to. It's something that you want to question. It's showing up for a reason, but it's not necessarily something you want to act on. So some examples of your inner conscious are, I really want to go out, but my gut is telling me to stay in and save money. Or another example could be feeling uncomfortable when you witness someone speaking disrespectfully to someone else. Maybe you are experiencing somebody bullying someone else and you kind of have that inner knowing that that's wrong, or you just feel uncomfortable in that situation. That is your conscious. Feeling guilty because you're doing something you were specifically told not to. Think back to when you were a teenager and your parents told you not to leave the house, or to not, your curfew was 9:00 and you came in the door at 12 and you had that guilt rush over you, and mom's sitting there staring at you being oh, look at the time. We've all been there. We all know the feeling very well. But that is your conscious, that's your guide. That's kind of indicating okay, we did something wrong here, let's not do that again. So okay, so now that you're aware of kind of the difference and what it is essentially, what we want to do is there's three main things. This is what I do to help people navigate you know getting through these mental blocks or the inner talking to yourself, these negative thoughts that come up, like working through the mindset work. But here's 3 things that may help you that you can kind of get started on with understanding your inner critic and like knowing how to like navigate it essentially. So the first thing is to identify what the inner critic is trying to tell you. So again, it's kind of like a warning alarm, kind of something's going off. What is actually going on? Like this narrative that you're telling yourself is not true, but like what is actually happening? Is there something I need to be aware of? Is there something I have to be afraid of? Like what is the situation that's going on? Assess your environment, what's going on, right? Like make sort of sense of like what's happening and not just like get stuck in your head with the negative thought, because that can happen. You can get stuck on like a negative loop and then you're just like literally the spiral starts happening. And I've been there multiple times. It's the worst feeling in the world and it's really hard to like pull yourself out of it until you start becoming aware of like literally just stopping yourself and being like, no, like what is actually going on here? Like these are just thoughts that are coming in right now. Like why is this happening? The next thing that you want to do is write it out. So a good practice or a good thing, like a good exercise, that you could do is basically have like a journal available handy close by, especially if you're kind of like starting to do inner work or starting to do mindset work. It's always good to have a journal that around. So like when you do have the thoughts of anything kind of like coming up, you can write it out and just like get it onto paper, because that often helps to kind of like just once it's out of your head, then you can sort of like dissect what is like being what you're telling yourself, and then assessing like is it actually true or is it like what's going on here? Like, what do I need to act on or not act on, right? So write it out and flipping the narrative. So for example, I'm so ugly, flipping it to you're so ugly and writing that out and then reading that back. And like, you would never say that to somebody, right? Like you would, like you're a kind human being. You would never just go up to somebody and be like, you're ugly. So why are we telling ourselves that? Why do we have that like negative narrative in our heads and we beat ourselves up? We are our worst critic, and you hear that all the time, and that's true because we talk so negatively about ourselves and we never like it's just ingrained in us from society. That's just what we've learned, to body shame, to feel like shit about ourselves and to not treat ourselves like our best friend and like learn to love ourselves. So I'm still in the process of that myself, but I've come a long way from like where I was 2 years ago. Longer than that, like I've been struggling this my whole life, and this is something that I'm helping people overcome now because it is so hard. Like once you get it and once you like start doing the work and you figure it out, it's the best feeling ever. Once you actually start like seeing yourself as a person and like actually taking care of yourself, like so many amazing things start happening and unfolding. But it's just having that sort of support or that guidance and somebody there to like help you get out of that situation. So when you're flipping the narrative, saying like I'm so ugly, turning it to you're so ugly, and reflecting on that and being like, I would never say that to somebody, so there's that. And the third thing is don't act on it. So if you're having these negative thoughts and you're kind of going to that spiral or going to that loop, like just don't do anything. Don't make any decisions in that moment, because that is not your real thoughts. That is not you speaking. This is your inner critic taking over your brain and basically being like, I'm like, if the inner critic is in charge, you are going to potentially derail your like true potential and your true success and your truest desires, because now you're positioning yourself in a way that's like stopping yourself from taking the correct action, and you're actually like literally not taking action at all because you're talking yourself out of it, because you're agreeing with that inner critic instead of kind of pushing back. So I hope that this helps, and I hope that they like at least it's a starting point to kind of become aware of the inner critic and sort of start questioning it. Like if you start feeling yourself talking negatively about yourself, why is it showing up? What's going on? Write it out, reframe the thought, like figure out like how like when you write it out, you're gonna look at it and be like, that's like an alien concept. Like I don't talk like that. That's not me. So then you're gonna immediately be like, oh, that's an inner critic. And then don't act on it and just wait. Like it's literally the worst thing to do is to start taking action when you're in those states. So like wait until the like dust is cleared, until you've like figured out your technique, writing things out. I do EFT tapping, so when I find myself going through this like the sort of downward spiral of negative thoughts, then I start tapping and I like get that energy out, because I know that's not true. It's not my thoughts. And it's just like, I just don't want to have that on me in my head. I want it out, because then it's just blocking my creativity. It's blocking my flow, like my regular train of thought, right? So that's been helping a lot. Um, Other people will meditate. It's kind of similar. Like tapping is like a form of meditation in a way. It's a guided tapping series, and you go through like acupuncture points while like saying out loud the things that you're feeling, and then how to kind of like, you know, reframe it or come out of it, basically, if that makes sense. You can look into it, but it's been helping me a lot. And yeah, so I really hope that that's resonated with you. If it has, make sure that you subscribe and follow along for more tips and more just ways to kind of like start working on your mindset and start doing the inner work, because that inner work is going to start unlocking a lot of your potential that's been hiding, and that you've kind of convinced yourself that you're not worthy, or just haven't even allowed yourself to like dream big or think big, because you've blocked yourself from doing that. So we are here to start putting yourself first, start taking care of yourself, and start doing the inner work. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching this last video. I just wanted to go over a couple of sort of housekeeping things, just so you guys know what's going on in my world and what's coming down the pipeline, something to get excited about. So I'm working on a 6-week bootcamp. It's called Frustrated to Thriving. It's pretty much intended to give you the tools and guidance to implement healthy habits, basically change your mental and physical health, and start living your best life. So it's only a 6-week boot camp, but it's going to be packed full of information. I'm really excited for it, and it's going to be changing lives. So if you want to join the waitlist for that, just to get all of like sort of behind the scenes, get any updates on it, and the early bird specials, then make sure that you subscribe below. There is a link to it. And then as well as my where to join my community. So you can join my community by following my YouTube channel. So subscribing to my channel here. You can also subscribe to or like follow along on Instagram and TikTok at Mindset Mentor Chané. And so I've got the links below as well to make it easier for you. And then I also have a community Facebook group, just kind of around health and wellness as well. I am an Arbonne consultant as well, so there's going to be a bit of Arbonne in there. There's going to be recipes, just a little bit of like a different vibe, but also based on health and wellness. So definitely follow along. I'm really happy to have you here. And if you want to, put in the comments below as well, just different topics of things that you want me to talk about. Just if there's something that's like on your mind, or if this like resonated with you, definitely put that in the comments as well. But I always want to hear like topics that you guys want to hear about, just to make sure that I'm giving you guys the most value. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video.